that idea that they wanted Trump to win. Frankly, if Putin sat there and thought to himself, well, what I want is what's in my and Russia's best interests, well, then I'm going to go with a known quantity. I'm going to go with Hillary Clinton because I know what I got there. And it's not tough.
But Trump was like pro-Putin. I mean, he's basically saying Putin's a smart guy. Putin's a great guy. We can do deals together. We can.
Yeah, but he's too smart. He's not going to take that on face value. I mean, he knows he's reading all the same shit and watching all the same shit that everybody else is, which is that Trump is in the past has kind of been President Trump has been all over the place and talked in different directions, and so it's not as if Putin would say, "Oh, he likes me," and he's not like that. He's like, "I bet we could be friends," and so. In just a what's best for my best interests, it's I'm gonna go that route.
Business as usual.
Business as usual, and I know I'm not gonna get any pushback for the shit that I do because she is just gonna continue the same things that have been happening. They're gonna continue to withdraw off the world stage, and this idea that somehow Hillary Clinton was a warmonger, what the hell? Where did that come from? So I'm not necessarily buying the idea that Trump or that Putin wanted President Trump to win.
That's an interesting perspective. I would have thought that he wanted him to win just to throw democracy into the shitter, just to fucking throw a big monkey wrench into the gears. Clang!
He probably felt that a Trump victory would do that. And you're right. And you're right. There's a possibility there, but Putin is he's an interesting cat, and I just have a feeling though that again they make these decisions based on what's in their own best interest, and I think they would look at the track record of Obama. They would look at her track record. They would look at an unknown quantity, and again, they're not going to buy what he just says on the surface. It's just not going to, it's not, they wouldn't be as simple as that. And they would look and think, let's go with what we know, because we know we can steamroll that, and this over here, we don't know. Now, what was the point of them meddling and doing what they did? Well, again, it goes back to the same thing. They're just trying to create instability, chaos in some sort of sense of mistrust of a democratic institution.
How do you feel about? What do you think? Like should we be concerned about Putin and Russia? I mean, is that something we need to go back to? When I grew up, I mean, you and I are pretty much the same age. When we were in high school, you remember that fear? Like everybody had this fear hanging over our head that we were going to go to war with Russia. There was going to be a mutually assured destruction, nuclear war. There was nothing we could do. I used to go to bed sometimes. I'd think about that. When I was like 14, I'd be like, "Fuck, I don't want to die in a nuclear bomb."
Exactly. No, I 100%. I mean, I remember when in elementary school. We'd have the duck and cover drills, right? You get under your desk. And,
good luck with all that.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends. One time we were sitting under the desk, and Mark started talking, and I looked at him, and I had older brothers, so they'd already told me how bullshit that whole exercise was. But I realized that my friend Mark here, sitting there as we kind of ate our lunch underneath the desk, so, it seemed like this was going to do it. This was going to protect us. Yeah. And I remember looking at him, and I told him, I said, Mark, this is not going to stop a nuclear bomb. There's no way that thing's going to just blow the shit out of us. And he was like, "Oh my God!" And I think I ruined the kid for life. Because
and then you go on to work in the CIA, and this poor dude's still shaking in a corner somewhere.
I know. Oh my God, the protective duties. So anyway, no, I think we should be worried about Putin in the sense that his agenda, his interests don't match up with ours. We should be worried in the sense that he honestly believes that the biggest catastrophe was the collapse of the Soviet Union. And he's never believed that there was a peace dividend from the end of the Cold War. Never, ever thought that way. And we did. I mean, there was talk about up on Capitol Hill after the end of the Cold War, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, we could shut down the CIA. What do we need that for anymore? And that was the same thought that happened after World War II. World War II ended. And Harry Truman, signed an order that ended the Office of Strategic Services, which was the old precursor for the CIA. Shut it down. It took 2 years. 2 years while the Soviet Union started building up and rampaging for the president to think, maybe this is actually a good idea. So then he created the CIA at that point. But we thought we were going to get some sort of dividend out of the end of that. And it just wasn't going to happen. The Russians never, ever believed that. Putin, in particular, and his cohorts never thought that was the case. So, yeah, we should be concerned about Russia. They're not going to ever be – it's not going to be a bipolar world again where they're the other major superpower. But in the sense that we need to deal with him realistically, we should always talk, fine, let's do diplomacy. But we just need to be pragmatic and understand, look, our interests aren't the same. And as long as we keep that in mind, sure, talk all we want to him. What the fuck?
He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
What he did by, running Russia, stepping back and being sort of a puppet master for a while and then jumping back in 2012 and running it again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, that's the type of behavior that people are terrified of. When someone is just sort of a blatant dictator masked as a democracy.
Right, and he doesn't even really try the masking. Really.
Not anymore.
No, yeah, it doesn't.
After 2012, he just kind of ramped it up. And
yeah. And look, he's done in part. And when I say that he thinks it was a catastrophe, those are his words. He thought he said that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century, and he's absolutely serious about it. So he's been trying to rebuild that in some fashion or another ever since then. And it's not just territory, although he's done a pretty good job of that. We forget that before Crimea. He rolled troops into Georgia, right? Not the state of Georgia. We're thinking, oh my God,
Atlanta.
Really? That doesn't make any sense. I don't think Mike knows what he's talking about. But into Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, and I'll be damned, but he's still got troops there. He's got a lot of troops there in Abkhazia and South Ossetia, and then he's also obviously he took Crimea. And why did he take Crimea? Well, because it's important to his fleet. I mean, it's not gonna happen. He's not gonna risk losing that. And then part of the Ukraine, but it's not just territory that he's interested in. It's leverage, it's influence, and that's where when we go back to that conversation about the Middle East, and we realize what they've been doing in the Middle East in particular. They've been active in other places, but mostly in the Middle East. That's all part of this same process. And so it's not a mystery why he does things. It's if you take him at his base word, which we should do because he tends to say exactly what he intends to do most of the time, and not try to read our values into it, right? Not say, well, I'm sure he doesn't mean that. I'm sure what he means is like, he wants to get to democracy eventually, but that's a lot of horseshit. But we tend to mirror our values on other people, right? So when we were talking about, earlier about how there's not another nation out there that really kind of approaches global concerns the way that we do with a certain set of principles and desires, even if we make mistakes, and obviously we do from time to time, of course. Then you look at Russia and you think, he doesn't do that. He doesn't look at something and go, maybe that would be best for all of us. I don't think he's ever had that thought. He literally is single-minded in his desire to do whatever will build back up Russian influence in the world. So we have to be pragmatic about it in dealing with him.
And to get a better understanding of him, I think there's a great podcast between Sam Harris and Garry Kasparov, the chess champion, who's a big critic of Putin, who's managed to stay alive somehow or another.
Yeah.
And I guess because he's just so famous. But that was a thing with one of his political opponents. He thought that if he was public, he would be much less likely to be killed, and they shot him right in front of his fucking girlfriend in public.
Yeah.
And that's...
There have been a number of incidents like that.
There's a bunch of those. I mean, he's on a totally different level. But Kasparov highlights the fact that he's a former KGB agent, and he says you have to understand the mentality of the KGB. Like, once you are KGB for life. I mean, there's an extreme form of nationalism and patriotism and this loyalty to the KGB. That
absolutely. He's absolutely right. He's not going to change. But again, we do this thing where we, it's basically called mirroring, right? I mean, it's like, and so, and then we get tripped up, and we think you could look at Iraq and Afghanistan as an example. Well, of course they're going to love this. Right. They're going to love democracy, and because we love it, and we want to do well, and we want to improve their literacy rate, and we want to do these things. Well, that's all great stuff, but it doesn't work in the sense that that's not how they view things. Karzai looked at that and thought, it's a shitload of money that I'm going to be able to steal here.
Right.
The entire Karzai family was just completely corrupt. And remember, there was that period of time when we just adored him. It was adulation. How wonderful is Karzai? Look how well he dresses. And that was what the hell. So, So Putin, I think, again, not in the sense that we've got some World War III coming up against Russia. That's not the case. That's not why we should be concerned about him. Although you do have to, again, worry about military buildup, worry about their nuke program, and what they're doing with theirs and what we're doing with ours. Unilateral disarmament, not a good idea. whether we're talking about Putin or anybody else. You can always want peace and you can strive for peace, but I have not seen a world that works differently. You've got to do that through a position of strength.
I think these conversations are so important because when a guy like you talks about this, you're not talking out of your ass, and you get a chance to understand how crazy this situation is worldwide and how difficult it is and what a balancing act it is.
Yeah, it is. And it's tough. I wouldn't want to be like the head of the State Department. I mean, the chief diplomat. That's a tough-ass job, right?
Yeah, you don't get any sleep.
No, but you got to do it, and you got to keep that level. It's just like fighting terrorism. It's like fighting the Islamic State. You got to do it on several different levels: community outreach, and trying to solve problems here, doing it militarily. All these things have to work together. We got to be smart enough to do that. So the same thing with dealing with Russia. Yeah, but the narrative that somehow Trump was being played by Putin, was his best friend, that's all. I'm not buying any of that shit. I think what we'll find is
you need to watch more Keith Olbermann videos.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
There's a coup.
Who doesn't love Keith Olbermann?
A silent coup. A bloodless coup.
I think what we're going to find is what Trump probably, I think, maybe, again, who knows? Maybe I'm completely
just call him Putin's
shit.
puppet, please.
Putin's puppet. I think what he's thinking is, we need to, as an example, the military. We've got to build up the military. Well, he knows that, he's smart enough to understand that, we got that wall to fall because we outspent the hell out of the Russians, right? And also part of it was Reagan. They actually didn't know if Reagan was crazy enough to hit the button, right? And so that unknowing, that uncertainty about what Reagan was all about, combined with the fact that we were outspending them and they couldn't keep up, that's what brought the Soviets eventually to realize, this is, we got to realign things because this isn't going to work.
As soon as they found out that Nancy Reagan based all of her decisions and all of her advice on astrology, they were probably like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Hold on.
We get him on the phone. We're going to need to talk this one out.
Is this real? Is she being serious? Astrology.
Wow. Yeah, what was that astrologer's name? Was Gene something. I remember that. Yeah.
Find out what that is. Nancy Reagan's
bring
astrologer.
Up that picture of Bill Clinton again. I never get tired of looking at that.
Ivanka. Come on. My favorite thing is his look to fucking Hillary. Don't look at me.
Yeah. Fuck you, dude.
Just growling at her.
That white man's bite, bite
Yeah.
the lip,
That's like
you can almost feel his hips starting to move. Oh yeah.
Here it is. Sister of Nancy Reagan astrologer Joan Quigley. Nancy listened religiously to what Joan had to say.
Wow.
Joan Quigley, huh?
Even the flight scheduler Air Force One.
Wow.
News right now, how big it is right now, but this is...
Trump signs order to bar some refugees, signaling prioritizing Syrian Christians. Letting Syrian Christians through?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So they'll have priority.
How do you know that they're going to be fucking Syrian Christian? How do you know they're really Christian? They're going to have priority.
Yeah. Probably be wearing a cross.
Oh, well, that's a good move. Yeah. That sounds crazy. Identifying specific countries with Muslim majorities and carving out exceptions for minority religions flies in the face of the constitutional principle that bans the government from either favoring or discriminating against particular religions, Romero said.
This is the Trump quote.
Okay. If you were a Muslim, you could come in, but if you were a Christian, it's almost impossible. And the reason that was so unfair, everybody was persecuted in all fairness, but they were chopping off the heads of everybody, but more so the Christians. How is this the president? He's so crazy.
I believe that's a run-on sentence.
It might be a little bit of a run-on.
Yeah.
Trump said in an excerpt of an interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network, oh, thank God he's talking to them,